Well, hello everyone. This is Lopan Yudron coming at you from Ngakchon Gotsel, the Happy Garden of Practitioners in Oakland, California. Welcome to my little half hour here. And today I'm going to be discussing my favorite topic in the whole world, the precious Vajrayana Buddhism. So this is something I never discussed before on this channel because, let's face it, I'm talking to the interested public here and not, compared to the broad array of people that are interested in Buddhism in general, it's a small section that is interested in the kind of Buddhism we call Vajrayana, which comes to us mainly from the Himalayas, although all Himalayan mountains of Central Asia, and but also Japan had a little strain of Vajrayana Buddhism went there too. So I don't know much about that. I can talk about Tibetan Buddhism today. Talking about this is the form of Buddhism that I practice. So it's like talking about my mom and dad. It's just like as easy as rolling out of bed in the morning. Welcome to those of you who are here live, and welcome to people who will be watching during the week. I'm very happy you're tuning in. So let's get into it. Vajrayana Buddhism came from India, just like what's called the Sutrayana, or the kind of style of Buddhism that is based on the body of literature called sutras, known as the words of the Buddha, from India. And then we've talked a lot about Mahayana Buddhism, which is kind of this Buddhism that embodies the way of the Bodhisattva and the view of emptiness and understanding emptiness. We talked about prajna with the scholar Aaron Weiss, and then there's a third kind of Buddhism that is called Vajrayana, and it's based on a different body of literature that developed in India, Buddhist literature called Tantras. And Tantras are a whole genre of literature, and very beautiful, filled with symbolism, allegory, optimism about awakening, and they form the basis of Vajrayana Buddhism. Vajrayana Buddhism is characterized by a mentor-mentoree relationship. So you have a specific teacher or teachers, and within that relationship, your practice develops. The teacher or mentor gives actually like initiations or empowerments or ceremony, and bringing you into the world of Vajrayana as the gateway, and recommends practices to you. And another thing that, speaking of practices, another thing that characterizes Vajrayana Buddhism is the array of techniques. So, in the Theravadan school, I'm not a Theravadan practitioner, but I've heard that the practices are shamatha, vipassana, the jhanas, developing loving kindness, and the 4 Brahma Viharas, and practicing, the ideal model of a Theravadan practitioner mostly from the southern Asian countries such as Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, famously, but they also are present in other places in Asia. That's what they do, and the highest ideal there is a monk, and in some cultures they have nuns as well. So regulating your very pure monk would be someone who follows a strict regimen of many precepts or rules, and dresses in robes, is celibate, and so forth. And then the Mahayana ideal is Bodhisattva, who could be a monk, a nun, or a lay person of either gender. And they're embodying great compassion, a vast view of the equality, evenness, evenly taking, bearing in mind the benefit of all sentient beings, and vowing, I will delay my own enlightenment for eons and work for the benefit of sentient beings lifetime after lifetime. But at some point in that process, by the very intentionality of their vow to save all sentient beings from samsara, they do indeed attain complete awakening by accident. And then we come to the Vajrayana, and it has a very optimistic view that through these, what I could say, esoteric texts, the relationship between a mentor and a mentoree, and this array of special practices involving your enlightened perspective or view, and the kind of meditation you do, and then the conduct you engage with, can result in enlightenment in a few lifetimes, or the next lifetime, or in the bardo or intermediate state between the two lifetimes, or in this very life for some very special people. And so it has that very optimistic viewpoint. And it's a very uplifted and, I would say, a joyful path, at least how I've experienced it. So today I'm just giving a kind of broad brush overview of Vajrayana to give you guys, and then I'm going to give you guys a practical flavor about what it would be like to be a student in a Vajrayana tradition. Another quality of the Vajrayana path, which is besides the relationship between the mentor and yourself, and holding the whole world with an idea of pure perception, of all sentient beings being Buddhas, all your master being a Buddha, so-called master, your phenomena being like a pure land right here, right now. In this way, we're taking the result as the path, they say. So, like when you're a Buddha, you're fully awakened, you don't really, that's the way you see the world. These are Buddhas all around you. We're waving at you, the guys who put in the air conditioning system in my house, or a pack of Buddhas that came in to do the install. And the whole world is the array of the palace of the Buddha and so forth. It's kind of a literal minded way of looking at it. But basically everything that arises is appearance emptiness. So it's not, there isn't any, it's beyond concepts, ineffable, and therefore completely pure. And so the thing about Vajrayana practice is that you're never off the cushion, in a sense. There's always a practice to do. Whether you're sitting and doing formal practice, you're up and around, you're sleeping, you're showering, you're sitting on the toilet, you're having sex, you're doing, it integrates well with daily life, and it's very suitable, they say, for the most difficult times, like those in which we find ourselves. It's a bright light that the more, because you can work with your afflictive emotionality very, you can transform them into the path of awakening. So it's sometimes said the more afflictive emotions, the brighter your awareness, the more the more likely you are to awaken on the spot. Because for the very force, the energy of those emotions can be flipped into a realization. Isn't that cool? Because we have plenty of afflictive emotions. Afflictive emotions are basically almost all emotions, filled with thoughts all the time, making concepts and judgments. That's the way we do with our silly human brain. So those are I've already talked about 4 aspects of Vajrayana practice that sort of distinguish the sort of flavor from Sutrayana practice, Mahayana, and Theravada practice. The strong mentor-mentoree relationship, a wealth of techniques, taking the result as the path, integrating with your life around the clock, no matter what it is, and working with emotions on the spot. And then another characteristic I'd say for working with the this is in some sense true of any Dharma lineage, but we work with words. You know, for a lot of the path, there's some practices that are wordless, but most of what we practice in Vajrayana Buddhism involves texts. And if you're a word person, if you love language, then it's to die for. And to learn a little bit of the native language in which it was written. Tibetan was the written language was created to communicate Dharma. Isn't that wonderful? A whole language, so it has all kinds of subtle terminology for things that are just, you know, we call mind or meditation or we have like 3 words for practice, for meditation, for group practices. It's just kind of lame in English. And maybe eventually, you know, Orkin Choang Rinpoche, who I respect a lot, is very optimistic that English is a great language. It has many more words in it than Tibetan has in general. And it can be made eventually to communicate Dharma. But until such time, if you're a word person or a language person, learning the language, Tibetan language, for example, is not going to take you to enlightenment. So you have to keep that in mind if you devote all your energy to learning words. If you're young, that's fine. But if you're older, we have to sort of take care of our daily schedule, right? That would be a kind of deviation. But to learn the key terms of understanding philosophy is such a highfalutin word. Understanding the meaning of why you're doing what you're doing in your practice, and so that it makes sense to you. Those kind of words are really important. So that's what mentor-mentoree relationship, a wealth of techniques, taking result, the path, integration with life around the clock, and language, the use of words to communicate what is ineffable, inexpressible. So the gateway into Vajrayana is gradually developing a relationship with a mentor and receiving empowerment ceremony, which is your literal gateway into the practices. And so there's 4 or 5 or 6 major schools of Buddhism in Tibet that have a tantric aspect. And I know mainly about the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. It's known as the ancient ones, what that means is they're all equally ancient, but the first tantric Buddhism that came to Tibet, actually Sutric also, we follow that stream. Then a couple of centuries later, two centuries later, all the other schools came from India into Tibet. So that's why they're called the ancient ones, the first early translation schools, what it's called. And actually, you know, instead of actually reading the texts that we call tantras that I referred to before, interestingly, the other schools of Tibetan Buddhism tend to literally rely on the literal tantric texts that came to them. And they only have a few that came that way. And we tend to rely on great spiritual adepts called tertons or treasure revealers, who they reveal revelations that are simplified versions, often practical versions of the Indian tantras applicable to the situation at the time of the discovery of this term. It literally means treasure, and it can be something that's found in the ground or in a lake or many different ways, or it can just arise as if by magic in the mind of the terton. And some treasure revealers will actually see texts. Anytime they want to conjure it up, there's a text written there right in the space in front of them. Can you believe it? And they're just like reading it off. And that's a whole big topic. But we rely, for example, I rely on a couple of different Nyingma traditions. One is called the Dujum Teresar. And we've talked some about Dujum Rinpoche. Jiddu Dorje was in 20th century Terton, and I've done very in-depth practice with his revelations or terma. And he was a Lama who was respected by everyone. So let's talk about practically, since that's the topic for today, in real life, right? So if you went physically to a Vajrayana practice, well, you may have been to, say you've been to Spirit Rock or EBMC or out to, I am not remembering the name of the big Theravada center in Massachusetts at the moment. And there's a very simple environment, contemporary, and people sit in silence or they walk in silence. And that's a sort of Theravadan, modern American Theravadan style and Vipassana practice. And then you go into a Zen center, and everything's very elegant, and maybe there's a polished floor, and everything's arranged so precisely, and black cushions, and then this one little ikebana, or flower arrangement, so artistic, spare, and very subdued. That then you think that's what Buddhism is, and then you walk into a Vajrayana center, and it's a burst of color, and you might hear, if you come when people are practicing, you might hear music and chanting. Chanting might even be in Tibetan. Incense, so in other words, it's coming in every sense. Your hearing is being included instead of shutting down senses, staring at a blank wall, for example, or trying to avoid noise and sitting in a very quiet place and doing Vipassana with your eyes closed so you're not distracted by anything. Your eyes are wide open, you're not silent, you may have texts involved, you may be sitting with, 80 people all reading the same text in what's it called? Not in uniform, unison. And then, or there might be melodies. There might be, have you seen a picture of those young monks with a long horn, really long, and they go as a Dzogchen, great horns, and then they have the cymbals, and then there's ritual being enacted, and there's sculptural art, offerings everywhere. It comes in all around you. The whole experience is immersive. When I was trying to write and share what this is like, it's like, was this the example? Did we use this example last week for something else? I don't know, but I feel like you're a hippo and you see water and you just go and you're completely immersed in the water. And then the gentle and kind lamas or spiritual leaders are sitting on high, elegant seats, radiating, hopefully, compassion, love and compassion. And you feel enveloped and held by that environment. So this is like a group practice is like. But what is your personal practice like as a Vajrayana student? What do you actually do? It seems like external, you're going and it can seem like you're, as an American, you've gone to Tibet, and it's external. It's like, this is, I went and did what the Tibetans do, and I did their practice. But when does it become your practice? How do you even get a handle on this thing? So we're working people generally, aren't we? And then there's some retirees who are so lucky because they have more time to practice. But in reality, you probably have about an hour a day to practice, and if you set your mind to it. And so in practical terms, each tradition has a set of foundational practices, which is going to be probably the first thing that you get. So either from the lead teacher or from a surrogate, you'll get the transmission, which means you'll be read aloud the text and have explained to it how to do it. And they vary from lineage to lineage. Ours is called Ngundro, what goes before, literally. So it's our preliminary practice, but it's actually a power pack of practices, everything you need. First of all, to get established in Buddhism, and Mahayana Buddhism in particular. So a lot of the practices developing renunciation. These are called the outer foundational practices. Really getting that things are impermanent, that your life is so precious, and you have to grab this opportunity to practice, and so on. So contemplations are part of it, and taking refuge again and again is part of it. Really deciding, I'm going to do the Buddha path. And the Buddha look different in this tradition, because Buddha means awakened one, right? So expanded, awakened and expanded, vast sky-like mind, that's a Buddha. All positive qualities have been expanded to the greatest extent, that's a Buddha. So Buddha doesn't always look like Shakyamuni Buddha. Buddha is also, for example, Padmasambhava. You can look up an image of Padmasambhava, who was called the second Buddha in Tibet. For us in our Nyingma lineage, he's the great symbol, model, exemplar of complete awakening. So you might go to refuge to Padmasambhava, for example, or to a Dakini, a female Buddha. Isn't that wonderful? So you pay homage again and again. You generate the bodhicitta. We've talked about all this for a year. And then into a purification practice. Reciting mantra, doing a visualization for purification. And then perhaps making offerings. You want to generate incredible merit, an incredible, forceful, positive trajectory, and make offerings in the most powerful way you can. This is called a Mandala Offering. You heard the word mandala before? That comes from Tantra, and primarily Buddhist Tantra, I think, but it's also present in Hindu Tantra, a parallel but different path. So mandala offering is you're offering everything as a sacred circle, one by one or all at once. And there's a whole method for doing that, because this is a system of methods. And then the Guru Yoga, and you're merging your mind with the mentor's mind, your Guru's mind, again and again, imagining, using the way that they inspire you, the hope that they give you, and your confidence they give you in your own awakening, to wake up what's naturally inside of you, because you have already Buddha nature inside, latent, waiting to be blossomed. And this practice, technique of imagining, merging your mind very specific ways with the with your with someone you have faith in, somebody you respect, in the but you pictured them in the form of a completely awakened Buddha. So you're imagining that they are 100% Buddha, awakened themselves, and with this feeling of, wow, they're like Buddha, but they're right here to help me. You merge, and that wakes up your flame. That triggers that little light within to blossom, to mix my metaphors. So that's a kind of typical power pack called Ngundro for most of the traditions. For sure, all Nyingma and Kagyu teachers are going to give you some form of Ngundro. There's many different particular texts. It's a genre of literature, but ultimately there isn't any difference between them. But you should do a Ngundro that's connected with the path you want to trod and connected with your teacher. And so you can do that for an hour a day. And that would be how they'd probably start you out. Although some Kagyu tradition, for example, they might start you with some shamatha vipassana practice as you're getting going. That's all between you and your teacher, because Vajrayana is personal. It's not like you read it out of a book. Don't be that way. Don't think I'm going to hide behind books and never meet an actual teacher. You can meet teachers everywhere on the internet. I put in the comments section, in the description of the video. Last night I wrote down a bunch of centers of lamas you might want to check out. And you always slowly approach. You read about them, you see their picture, you think that person's looks really cool. That really makes me feel uplifted, something about it appeals to you. And they've chosen all kinds of different ways to present Vajrayana in this country, and Dzogchen and Mahamudra, which are more formless practices that don't involve visualization, mantra recitation, tend to come later. Not always. Do you have any questions? So if you do, put them in the comments and reactions box. And you can always ask later if you're seeing this delayed after the fact. Throw something in the comments section. I'll see it for sure. So in that description, I put in a lot of names of Dharma organizations. They all each have affiliated teachers. See if any of those appeal to you. And if they have something going right now, you might want to jump in. But actually, during the process of Ngundro, you don't have to wait until you are 100%. At least you can talk to the particular system you're in. If you want to do Ngundro or the foundational practices of one of these groups, these are all Nyingma ones, because I'm not saying we're better than anybody else. We're all Buddhist Vajrayana traditions are 90% the same. There's just that 10% makes it for me, and I feel a real kinship with the Nyingma tradition. Check them out if you want, and always, gradually approach. See if it feels right. You can take years to approach a potential teacher, and definitely investigate on the internet. All these have good lamas associated with them, but don't be naive. Be careful with your spiritual life and satisfy yourself. This person is qualified. This person is compassionate. Their manner inspires me. Everybody has a different personality display, right? And that way, gradually approach, and you can be doing that while you're doing their foundational practices, starting at the beginning. And you can always bow out later. Those practices are always going to be beneficial. So it doesn't matter if you start with one lama and you go to another one. Wow, we're here at 6:30, and that's just where I was thinking I could wrap this up. Looks like we don't have any questions today. It's been great to share with you a little of my joy and love for the Vajrayana tradition. It's just so fresh and alive. I adore Vajrayana Buddhism, and I hope that sometime you get a chance to be exposed to it. All right, you take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.